how to interpret your strengths profile. About 10 years ago, two psychologists, Marty Seligman and Chris Peterson, became interested in positive character development. What they really wanted to know is, what makes up a good character? After a great deal of research, they identified 24 characteristics that have been admired across different cultures, different religions, and over a long period of time. These 24 characteristics, called character strengths, are what is measured by the VIS assessment you recently completed. This assessment does not measure talent, potential, intelligence, or leadership ability. It also does not measure weaknesses. The strengths at the bottom of your character profile are not weaknesses. They're just strengths that you don't use as often as the strengths at the top of the list. Your character profile lists all 24 character strengths in the order in which you tend to use them, with the strength listed at number 1 as your most used strength and number 24 as your least used strength. These strengths are fairly stable over time, meaning that if you completed this assessment every year for, say, 5 years in a row, you'd probably see roughly the same results each time. Now that you know more about how to interpret the results of your assessment, pause the video and take a closer look at your strengths profile. Do the results seem to fit? Are there any surprises in your profile? When you're ready to continue, just click play. Now, let's spend some time learning about your signature strengths. Your signature strengths are your top strengths. These are the strengths you use most often. They come easily and naturally to you. Your signature strengths are usually satisfying to use as well. You feel good when you use them, and life seems to be just a little bit better when you do. Researchers have found that people who use their strengths at work are happier, more satisfied, and they're actually better at their jobs. So, finding new ways to use your signature strengths at work can improve your work and lead to greater job satisfaction. Most people have between 4 and 7 signature strengths. Your signature strengths can be found listed as number 1 through number 4 on your character strengths profile. Now that you know more about signature strengths, pause the video and take a closer look at your own signature strengths. Choose one of your signature strengths to focus on for the next 2 weeks. Make a note of which signature strength you'd like to work on by writing it down or circling it on your report. And when you're ready to continue, just click play. Now that you've picked a signature strength to work on, let's learn about how you can use goal setting to increase your use of that strength in the next 2 weeks. The overall purpose of this exercise is to encourage you to use one of your signature strengths at work in a new way every day at work for the next 2 weeks. To achieve this, it helps to set clear, specific goals for how you'll do it. The SMART framework provides guidance for setting effective goals, and more than 3 decades of research have shown that setting clear, specific goals leads to better outcomes than just trying your best without setting goals at all. Many companies use the SMART framework for performance management, and you might be familiar with this framework when creating goals for your performance appraisal. These criteria can be used for setting goals for strengths use as well. Let's look at each of the criteria, and we can use my goal as an example of how to apply the SMART framework for this exercise. I've chosen to work on my signature strength of curiosity. A specific goal is clear and unambiguous. It tells me specifically when, where, and how I'll use my strength. Let's look at my original goal. I think you'll agree that it's not very specific. It's great that I want to use my strength at work, but this goal doesn't give me much specific guidance on how I'm going to do that. Here's how I might revise the goal to make it more specific. This revised goal tells me how I'm going to use my curiosity, by asking my coworkers questions about their projects. That's a big improvement, but this goal still needs work. So let's look at the next criteria. When a goal is measurable, it means that I have some way of tracking my progress so that I can keep myself accountable. To make my goal more measurable, I added information about when I will ask questions. Now I have a way of knowing whether I'm making progress toward the goal. After each meeting, I can make a note about whether I asked my coworkers questions about their projects or not. An attainable goal is a goal that I can realistically hope to achieve. It should be challenging, but realistic. Looking over my goal, I think maybe it's just too hard. Asking questions at every single meeting is probably not realistic. Here, I've revised it to make it more attainable. I will ask questions during our weekly staff meetings. A relevant goal is a goal that is related to my job or something that I want to accomplish. This one is easy. If you're using your strengths at work to become better at your job, it's automatically relevant to your work. This is true for any strength you use at work. No matter which signature strength you're working with, it's relevant. For this criteria, I don't need to make any revisions. A time-bound goal has an end date, a date by which the goal should be achieved. For this exercise, the time frame is already set. I know I'm using my strengths in a new way for 2 weeks, so I'll just update my goal to reflect that. And here's a comparison of my original goal with my revised SMART goal. My original goal wasn't very clear. The new goal, on the other hand, provides me with specific guidance for what I should do and when. My new goal is helpful, but I might find that setting just one goal isn't effective enough. With my goal, for example, I have only 2 opportunities to use my strength over the course of 2 weeks. So here are a few more goals I've created for myself to increase my strengths use. In addition to asking questions of my coworkers, I'm also going to ask at least one person from outside my team for feedback on a project we're working on together. I'm hoping that they'll be able to give me a perspective on the project that I wouldn't get on my own. I'm also going to ask at least 2 of my coworkers about what's happening in their lives outside of work. One of my coworkers just came back from vacation, for example, so I might ask her about that. Another coworker mentioned that his son is playing Little League this year, so I might ask him how that's going. Even though these questions aren't work-related, I hope that by showing an interest in my coworkers, I can show that I care about them as people, and our relationship will be stronger as a result. Finally, let's summarize what we've learned in this video and talk about next steps. We started by learning how to interpret your strengths profile. We learned about the importance of your signature strengths. And we talked about creating SMART goals for strengths usage. So here are the next steps in this exercise. If you haven't already, choose a signature strength you'd like to work on. Remember, these are strengths listed as 1 through 4 on your strengths profile. Then create 1 or more clear, specific goals for how you'll use that strength at work. Consider using the SMART framework. Then put your plan into action and track your progress. If you've made your goals measurable, you should have a good idea of how to track your progress. It could be something as simple as noting it in a notebook. You can rewind this video or come back to it at any time over the next 2 weeks if you'd like more guidance.